Listen to me carefully, because today I bring you a speech that will pierce through your heart like a knife. A speech that will force you to confront the truth you've been running from. A speech that may hurt you, break you, even shake you. But if you stay with me till the end, it will transform you. Because this is the truth every man must face. When you learn to walk away, your value doubles. You see, most men spend their lives begging for attention, approval, love, validation. They cling to people who don't respect them. They fight for scraps from tables that were never meant for them. They lower their worth, bend their back, sacrifice their soul, all for someone who doesn't even see them. And the more they beg, the smaller they become. The more they chase, the weaker they look. The more they explain themselves, the less they are heard. Tell me, hasn't this been you? Haven't you stayed in conversations that drained you? Haven't you loved people who never loved you back? Haven't you explained your heart to deaf ears, over and over, hoping one day they'll understand? And what happened? You felt invisible. You felt used. You felt like no matter how much you gave, it was never enough. But here's the painful truth. It wasn't because you weren't enough. It was because you refused to walk away. A man's strength is not measured by how long he can hold on. It's measured by his courage to let go. Think about it. The world doesn't respect the man who begs. It respects the man who refuses to kneel. The world doesn't honor the man who explains. It honors the man who stays silent and walks away. And the day you decide, truly decide, that you will no longer beg for what should already be yours, that is the day you rise. That is the day your value doubles. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who loved a woman more than himself. He gave her his time, his energy, his soul. Every night, he prayed that one day she would see his heart for what it was. But instead of gratitude, she gave him distance. Instead of love, she gave him silence. And instead of loyalty, she gave him betrayal. He begged. He explained. He tried to prove himself. But the more he tried, the more invisible he became. Until one day, something inside him broke. He woke up and realized, if I have to beg for love, it isn't love. If I have to beg for respect, it isn't respect. If I have to beg to be seen, then I am wasting my life. And that day, he walked away, not with anger, not with hate, but with silence, with dignity, with power. And you know what happened? The very people who ignored him started to notice. The very ones who laughed at him began to question themselves. The woman who thought he would never leave finally saw what she had lost. Because when a man walks away, the world wakes up. Because walking away isn't weakness. It's the loudest roar of strength. Listen carefully. You don't lose value when you walk away. You reveal it. You don't become smaller when you stop explaining yourself. You become untouchable. You don't destroy yourself by letting go. You free yourself to build again. But here's the hard part. Walking away hurts. It feels like tearing your own heart out of your chest. It feels like dying inside. It feels like giving up on the very thing you thought you needed to breathe. And that is why most men stay. They stay where they are not respected. They stay where they are not loved. They stay where their value is crushed. Because the pain of leaving feels unbearable. But hear me, and let these words sink into your bones. The pain of walking away is temporary. The pain of staying where you are not valued is forever. You want to know why your life feels stuck? Why your heart feels heavy? Why your mind feels exhausted? Because you keep trying to water dead plants. Because you keep trying to build homes in places that were only meant to be hotels. Because you keep begging people who were never meant to feed your soul. And the only way to break free is to walk away. Not just from people, but from habits that destroy you, from environments that kill you, from old versions of yourself that no longer serve you. Walking away is not an act of defeat. It is an act of rebirth. You see, when a man learns to walk away, he begins to rebuild himself in silence. He finds his worth not in their approval, but in his reflection. He learns to stand tall, even when no one claps. He learns to love himself, even when no one else does. And that is when the magic happens. That is when his value doubles, because he is no longer dependent on anyone to define it. Tell me, what is more powerful than a man who doesn't beg? What is more dangerous than a man who doesn't explain? What is more unstoppable than a man who doesn't need anyone? but chooses himself. You see, walking away doesn't just protect your worth, it multiplies it. Because now, people know you cannot be bought, you cannot be bent, you cannot be broken, and that kind of man is untouchable. So here's my message to you: stop begging, stop explaining, stop shrinking. Walk away. Walk away from those who mock you. Walk away from those who ignore your worth. Walk away from those who keep you chained to misery. Because every step you take away from what destroys you is a step into the man you were always meant to become. And when you finally learn to walk away, you will see it. The shift, the change, the doubling of your value. Because silence speaks louder than begging ever could. Because leaving leaves a message no words ever will. Because when you walk away, you don't just leave behind pain. You step into power. So the question is, are you ready? Are you ready to finally choose yourself? Are you ready to stop explaining, stop begging, stop shrinking? Are you ready to rise? Because if you are, then listen closely. The journey begins the moment you decide to walk away, and that journey starts now. You walked away, and at first it felt like death. The silence was louder than any scream. The loneliness felt like a prison. The weight of letting go almost crushed you. But listen closely, that silence you feared, it wasn't punishment. It was power. That loneliness you thought would kill you, it was rebirth. That weight you carried, it was the burden of becoming a new man. Because the moment you walk away, life tests you. It strips you down. It takes away the noise, the comfort, the distractions. It forces you to sit alone with yourself. And that is where the transformation begins. Most men run back, they beg again, they explain again, they chase again. Because they can't handle the silence. They can't handle the mirror. They can't handle facing the truth of who they are without someone else to validate them. But not you. Not anymore. Because now you've decided. You've chosen yourself. And once a man truly chooses himself, there is no going back. This is the phase no one talks about. The silent war. The nights where you stare at the ceiling wondering if you made the right decision. The mornings where you feel empty because the person you used to beg from is no longer there. The days where your heart craves comfort, but your soul whispers, stay strong. This is the battlefield where boys break and men are born. You see, walking away is only the first step. The true power comes when you rebuild. When you take that emptiness inside and fill it with strength. When you take that silence and turn it into discipline. When you take that heartbreak and forge it into hunger. Because here's the truth: pain is fuel. Silence is a weapon. Loneliness is training. Every tear you cried was cleansing you. Every lonely night you endured was teaching you. Every ounce of pain you carried was building you. You didn't lose when you walked away. You leveled up. But you only see it once you embrace the silence. Once you sit with your pain and let it shape you instead of running from it. Think about it. The strongest men you've ever admired. Do you think they became great by begging? Do you think they became powerful by explaining themselves to people who never cared? No, they walked away. They embraced solitude. They built in the shadows until the world could no longer ignore their light. And that's exactly what you must do now. You must rebuild yourself ruthlessly, piece by piece, day by day, with no one clapping, no one cheering, no one validating. Wake up earlier, push yourself harder, train your body until the weakness sweats out of you, train your mind until the doubt flees from you. Feed your soul until the emptiness inside you is replaced with fire. Do not explain your grind. Do not justify your silence. Do not beg for anyone to notice. Because this is your season of becoming untouchable. And here's the paradox: the less you need them, the more they notice you. The less you explain, the more they want to understand you. The less you beg, the more your value multiplies. Because a man who needs nothing cannot be controlled. And that man is dangerous. That man is unstoppable. That man is you. But it won't be easy. The people you walked away from, they will test you. They will try to pull you back into their games. They will bait you with attention. They will provoke you to explain yourself. They will whisper lies into your ear, hoping you'll crawl back. Do not fall for it. Remember why you walked away. Remember the pain of begging. Remember the shame of explaining yourself to deaf ears. Your silence is your shield. Your absence is your answer. Your growth is your revenge. Every time you resist the urge to go back, you become stronger. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, your value doubles. Every time you sit alone and refuse to settle, you rise higher. And one day, you will look in the mirror and not recognize the man staring back. Not because you've lost yourself, but because you've found yourself. Because the broken man who once begged is gone, and in his place stands a man who cannot be shaken. Think of it this way: when you begged, you were chained. When you explained, you were caged. When you walked away, you broke the lock. But when you rebuilt, you became the key. The key to your own freedom, the key to your own destiny, the key to your own worth. And that, my brother, is priceless. Listen to me carefully. The world will never hand you respect. It will only reflect the respect you demand for yourself. The world will never give you value. It will only mirror the value you assign to yourself. So if you beg, the world will treat you like a beggar. If you explain, the world will treat you like a fool. But if you walk away and rebuild yourself in silence, the world has no choice but to see your worth. Because value isn't given, it's built. And once built, it cannot be denied. That's why men who walk away are feared. That's why men who rebuild in silence are untouchable. That's why men who choose themselves are unstoppable. So let me ask you, what kind of man do you want to be? The one who spends his life explaining himself to people who will never understand. The one who wastes his energy begging for scraps of love and respect. Or the one who walks away, rebuilds himself, and doubles his value until the world can't help but take notice. The choice is yours, and your life depends on it. Because here's the final truth: every man must face the silence. Every man must endure the loneliness. Every man must walk away from something that once defined him. But only a few turn that silence into power. Only a few turn that loneliness into growth. Only a few walk away and never look back. And those few, they become legends. So don't you dare crawl back. Don't you dare explain yourself again. Don't you dare beg for what was never yours to begin with. Instead, build, grow, rise, and the day will come when the very people who ignored you will whisper your name. When the very ones who doubted you will bow to your presence. When the very ones who thought you were weak will realize you were the strongest all along. Because walking away doesn't make you less of a man. It makes you the kind of man no one can touch. And that is how your value doubles. There comes a moment in every man's life when the pain turns into power, when the silence stops being a punishment and becomes a fortress, when the loneliness no longer feels like death, but like rebirth. And that moment, my brother, is the moment you become unstoppable. Because after the tears dry, after the nights of doubt pass, after the storms of temptation fade, you finally see it. You were never weak for walking away. You were never broken for refusing to beg. You were never a fool for choosing yourself. No, you were becoming the man you were always meant to be. Look around. Most men never make it here. Most men stay trapped their entire lives, explaining themselves to people who don't care, chasing people who don't respect them, begging for scraps of love and attention. And do you know what happens to them? They grow bitter. They grow small. They die inside before their body ever hits the ground. But not you. You chose differently. You chose the harder path. You chose to burn in silence until the fire forged you into steel. And now, look at you. A man no longer owned by anyone else's opinion. A man who doesn't bend when the world demands explanations. A man who doesn't beg when love is withheld. A man who doesn't crawl, doesn't chase, doesn't submit. You stand, and that's enough. Because your very presence commands respect. Do you realize what you've become? A man with nothing to prove, but everything to offer. A man who doesn't explain himself, because his life speaks louder than words. A man who doesn't beg, because his worth is carved into his very being. That is why your value doubled. Not because you gained something from someone else, but because you stopped giving away your soul for free. You closed the leaks. You shut the doors. You guarded your energy. And when a man learns to guard his energy, he becomes untouchable. Understand this. People respect distance more than desperation. They respect silence more than explanations. They respect absence more than presence. When you walk away, you show them you are not afraid to lose them. When you rebuild, you show them you were never afraid to be alone. When you rise, you show them you were always destined to lead. And that is when they come back, not because you chased, but because you outgrew. But here's the lesson: by the time they come back, you won't even need them anymore, because you'll finally realize that the thing you were chasing in others was always inside you. Peace, strength, worth, power. It was never theirs to give, it was yours to uncover. And walking away was the shovel that dug it out of you. So here is the truth that must stay with you for the rest of your life: a man who learns to walk away is a man who finally learns to walk into himself. And when he does, nothing and no one can stop him. Not betrayal, not heartbreak, not loneliness, not rejection. Because he doesn't draw his strength from others anymore. He draws it from his soul. And the man who draws from his soul is unstoppable. So let this be your reminder. Never explain yourself to people who don't deserve your words. Never beg for the love that should have been freely given. Never waste your power trying to convince the blind of your vision. Instead, walk away. Stand tall. Guard your silence. Build in the shadows. Rise when it's time. And when you do, your value won't just double. It will multiply beyond anything you ever imagined. Because the world bows, not to the man who chases, not to the man who begs, not to the man who explains, but to the man who knows his worth and refuses to settle for anything less. That man is feared. That man is respected. That man is unstoppable. And that man is you.